What's up, everybody? Welcome into the F6 Football Podcast. Cam Copeland here, as always, and Alex Roglin has made his triumphant return back to the studio. As you can see, if you're on YouTube, his background looks phenomenal. It's not just blank, and that is good to see. Alex, glad to have you back with us, man. How's your trip?
Thank you, Cam. That was an awesome introduction, and thanks for holding the fort down for the F6 podcast last week. I appreciate that. That was awesome. Nice rundown of some college prospects and got some good analysis there. So if you guys missed that episode, definitely go back and check that out. But it was good. I was there for a little work trip. Went down to Columbia, South Carolina. Spent some time down there. Good to see coworkers. Enjoyed my time, but good to be back in Virginia right after that, and excited to be back in the podcast. So missed doing our show last week, and glad to be back with you this week.
Yeah, and we're back to our routine during the season. You know, it was nice to talk about some prospects last week while you were gone, and I just wanted to shout out real quick. I did post the first iteration of my big board for this upcoming 2024 class on Camalytics. We can share it in the link for this pod as well. But I'm really excited about that, to have that out there. I've been grinding the film, gotten through in the 70 to 80 of the top prospects, and I put together the ones that I thought were best, wrote a little bit about each of them. So that's up. You can check that out. But now we're just going to be able to talk about some football, talk about the week. This last weekend, there were some crazy games, Alex. So do you want to get started off with anything in particular?
Yeah, before we jump to the week 7 stuff, we do have to just do a quick return to week 6, since we didn't get a chance to talk about our upset picks from week 6. So just a quick recap on that, and then we'll move into week 7 stuff. So for week 6, my upset pick was the Seattle Seahawks over the Cincinnati Bengals. Feeling really good about that pick for most of the game. And in fact, the Seahawks had a chance to and probably should have pulled that game out, even got to 4th and goal. And had a chance to pull that game out late. Unfortunately, they did not. So that was another loss for me. That takes my record now to 2-4. But that's just a quick recap on that. The Bengals were on a bye this week, so no additional game to talk about them until we look forward to next week. As a refresher, your pick was well, I'll let you do it. You want to?
Yeah, it was the Chicago Bears over the Minnesota Vikings. Unfortunately, I was just 1 week early with my Bears upset pick, but it does not carry over, even though Alex is gone. So, Vikings took that one, but just a 1-score game. It was a pretty ugly game. I didn't feel good about it at any point, and especially there at the end when it did come through. So that puts me to, I believe, 3-3. Does that sound right to you, Alex?
That's right. Yep.
3-3, and we'll see if Alex can even it out this upcoming week, or if
I'm
if
2-4 now. So yeah, you're right. The only way that'll be is if I win and you lose. So
exactly,
we'll see. But yeah, so that was our week, and of course, I know for those who've been following us, we didn't have any picks for week 7, so that's not a problem there. But we will give our picks for week 8 when we get into that part of the show. So I guess to just kind of get into a few games, some games that stand out from week 7. Certainly, I mean, do you want to start? Should we start with the Monday night game with the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, we can definitely start there. Kirk Cousins played great. The Vikings took that over the Niners, which I don't think anyone really saw coming. I know Deebo Samuel was out for the 49ers, and Brock Purdy finally started looking like a human being. If you look at his stats, he's had more turnover-worthy plays than a lot of people would expect, but he's been you hate to say it, but the balls bounce in his favor. I'm trying to avoid using the word lucky in that, but if he throws it right in the chest of a defender and they drop the ball, that's pretty lucky. So he's still a very good quarterback who fits in the system well. Not trying to bash the guy or anything, but he looked human, and the Vikings they exploited some of the weaknesses, and then Jordan Addison used his big man strength to get a 60-yard touchdown. That was beautiful. I had him in fantasy, which is always not much more fun in my bigger money league. So it was a fun game. It really was, even though it wasn't necessarily the prettiest. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting game, and we just pulled the highlights up. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to watch those as we go along. But yeah, I thought a couple things about that game. I thought it was certainly disappointing for Brock Purdy, and the way that game ended up. He's a guy that we've talked about a fair amount, and a couple plays stood out to me that I just thought, man, some of the physical limitations are certain situations where they really kind of stand out. And one of them was a key second half play where Brock Purdy rolled out to his left on a key third down, and then he tried to stop and throw it back across his body. I think it was maybe to Wilson for a first down, and Wilson was open, and Brock just couldn't get it there, and it wasn't that far. It was maybe 10 yards or so, but and I think the thing that's just stood out to me is that, I mean, he's obviously such an excellent decision maker, but I think that just showed that, he's going to have to find ways to overcome some of those limitations. He's an accurate passer for the most part, but just doesn't have that arm strength. And so, then when those times, like I know we just saw one of these picks coming up here, but I mean, when he doesn't have the accuracy, it's tough because he just doesn't have that arm strength to throw the ball over the yard. So, the 49ers are still certainly elite. They're most definitely going to be in the mix here for the Super Bowl, no doubt. But we're starting to see a few cracks in the foundation at the quarterback play, and it's a little concerning.
Yeah, and that's their second loss in a row, right? They lost the previous week to the Browns in another scrappy matchup. Both relatively low-scoring games. They scored 17 points in both of them. That's not going to win you many games in today's NFL. So, Purdy is that smart, quick timing quarterback. And if he doesn't have that, he, again, not having Debo, I think hurt them quite a bit because they're used to having this array of weapons to where, you don't necessarily need to play, high-low ball, right? You don't need to play underneath and then have guys taking those deep shots. And because you just have so many weapons that they'll do the work for you. And if you only have Ayuk, then on the outside, however great he may be, it's just not going to be enough for that style of offense. But I agree with you, Alex. They're still definitely, potential Super Bowl contenders. I don't think this will slow them down all that much in the grand scheme of things. All right, let's get into another one of these games. There are two games I want to talk about a bit more before moving on. We can certainly touch on more. But the next one is a Browns-Colts game because that game was absolutely wild, right? Browns ended up taking that 39-38. I know some people were getting a little upset about some officiating at the end, but whatever that may be, the Browns ended up taking it. And you got to give the game ball to Myles Garrett, who I have said this for a while, but I still think is just the best defensive end, maybe defensive player in the NFL. I know right now he's sitting with a 95 Pro Football Focus pass rush grade, which is just so far ahead of everyone else. He's doubled all the time. He has 31 pressures on the season with a 29% pass rush win rate, which is absurd. For reference, the next players listed for Pro Football Focus pass rush grades below him are pretty expected. Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Aaron Donald, and none of them have above a 23% pass rush win rate. And Myles Garrett is getting doubled easily as much as any of them, and more than some. And he's just the best. He's just the best there is. And I think this Browns defense is easily. I'm going to say I think they're top 3 in the NFL, and I just think that teams score on them more because the offense cannot get them in good situations. They're always playing from behind or on short fields, and that reflects poorly on the defense. But they're just absolutely superb, and the turnaround they've had from last year to this year with defensive coaching as well, it's been pretty astonishing. So I like the Browns this season, but you just never know what's going on with their their quarterback situation.
Yep.
Pretty much since this franchise began. So
yeah. And with that, I was going to jump in right there, Cam, because that was what I was going to say. My biggest question mark is with them, and it's been such a strange year because even when Deshaun Watson was healthy, he was not really playing well. And then now there's all these strange question marks where, it was leaked that he was healthy and that they wanted him to play, but then he chose to sit last week, and then somehow they were still able to win. And then now this game he plays for what I think most of the first quarter, right? And then he goes out with a concussion after throwing, I think, 2 interceptions. And so there it is. We got the highlight up here showing when he went out. So, I think it just speaks to some of the challenges of Cleveland. I mean, they just can't get it right at quarterback. I mean, they put all their chips on the table to go get Watson, and the whole reason was to add an elite playmaker at quarterback and to have a guy locked up on a long-term deal that they would never have to worry about, right? And they said, let's just get a guy that we know is really good and will be taken care of at quarterback finally, and then we can kind of move on with the rest of the team. And yet here they are 2 years later. The rest of the team, is solid. They got good offensive line, or definitely one of the above average offensive lines, solid, excellent, elite defense. They can run the ball. They got some playmakers, and yet here they are again, huge question marks about the quarterback. So it kind of sucks if you're a Browns fan, because with that Deshaun Watson contract, unless he turns it around at some point, they're kind of stuck.
Yeah, and they lost, potentially the best pure runner in the NFL, in Nick Chubb early on. So that's not helping their offense at all. And there's a sleeper alert that came out just within the last half hour of recording the show. I'm going to read it. It says Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson has a strain of the subscapularis within the rotator cuff, and he continues to have both pain and weakness with movement. This injury in baseball normally causes pitchers to miss 4 to 6 weeks per Adam Schefter. So,
and that's his throwing arm. That's his throwing shoulder.
I believe so. I'm unsure, but you would think if he keeps himself out of games, allegedly because of pain after being cleared to play, you'd think that would be in the throwing arm. So, all the reports that have come out on him, again, electing not to play after being cleared and getting that fully guaranteed contract of 5 years, $230 million, I'm pretty sure. You have to question how much he wants to be out there competing, because his demeanor, he always looks a bit calm. You see right there, he's pumping his fist, but he's still straight face. I don't necessarily want to get into the man's character on this show, but he doesn't really look to be the competitor that a lot of these other top quarterbacks are, after getting paid.
100%. And I think that's a great take, Cam. And I would agree with you. I mean, I think there's a couple other guys I think about. I mean, obviously Mahomes' toughness is unquestioned, right? I mean, The guy had a high ankle sprain and he's running on one leg and he's screaming at his coach when his coach is trying to take him out of the game. I mean, and now not everybody's Mahomes, but even guys like Lamar Jackson, right? He's a guy that's had an injury history, but you can just tell from the body language that when he's not out there, it's like killing him. There's nothing more that he wants to do than to be out there running around, throwing touchdowns. And body language is, it's more than half the story. And I agree with you completely. When Deshaun Watson's not playing, he seems like he's pretty content, just to not play. And that's not a good sign for a guy that you want to be the leader and the future of your program. So I think that I would have to agree with you on that take. We're not necessarily questioning his toughness, but and
there are just some question marks.
Yeah, there's clear character question marks about the guy, and I think that's pretty well documented.
Yeah, and you say guys like Mahomes who will fight through anything, and then you bring up Justin Herbert, right, who played
absolutely
through
another
rib.
Yep.
But at this level, I'd say the vast majority of quarterbacks try to play through pain. I mean, Matt Stafford has played through so many injuries, his back injuries, and you just you pick any team and take a quarterback who's been injured, and they're trying to get out there. There are instances of even, the Derek Carrs and Kirk Cousins and guys who aren't necessarily these mobile superstars, but they're fighting through it and they want to play and they want to get better. And so it's more of a rarity to find a guy who is content. And that's why we're bringing it up, right? Not because he's not this top one competitor, but because it's just odd to see in the NFL. All right. Anything from the Colts side of this game? Josh Downs, good player, very good player. Love to see the rookie coming through. Gardner Minshew holding down the fort I know they lost, but he's playing well. Any other takeaways from that side, Alex?
No, I just think it's a bummer that I think it's a bummer that Richardson's going to be gone for the season. I know we touched on that a little bit. Because he in the times he has played early in the season, I mean, he has flashed. So he's a guy I really wanted to watch this whole season. So that was disappointing that he's not going to be around. And I do think the Colts are in a tough spot because they're already, I think they're already have a better record than I think most people thought, and they're not. And honestly, their division is I mean, the Jaguars should run away with it, but the Jaguars haven't exactly been a perennial power, so who knows how that division can shake out. And so they're in a tough spot because like we said, they're not going to tank, right? We obviously know that the guys want to win. But I mean, at best is the ceiling of this team, 9 wins, right? And so it's like, do you try to sneak into the back into the playoffs there? And what does that look like? So it's just, they're in a bit of a tough spot for sure.
Yeah, now no Jaguars slanders here, Alex. They've won 4 straight games. Come on, they're getting it together.
I mean, they just got to prove it in the biggest moments, they're looking good so far.
They do. Trevor Lawrence, another great player.
Tough quarterback.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Now, the last game I definitely wanted to make sure to touch on before we move on to the following week is the Commanders and Giants, because as ugly as some of these games were this last week, that was the ugliest. And I went back and I watched, the all 22 for all of the sacks and whatnot. There were 6 sacks on the Commanders this game. And my takeaways at this point in the season are pretty much what people have been saying all along. And that's everyone the front office brought in this offseason has been terrible. Every starter they brought in, I'm excluding. Actually, you can include the draft, right? Emmanuel Forbes has objectively been one of the worst cornerbacks in the NFL so far. First rounder, second rounder. Martin, he's been unable to play. He just got injured again. Feel more sorry for the guy than anything. But the draft picks aren't seeing the field. Nick Gates looked out of place. He did not look like an NFL starter. He allowed, I believe, 3 of the pressures that led to sacks. It might have been more. Either way, watching all of them in succession, he was definitely a part of it. The offensive line does not communicate on stunts. That should be a pretty simple task for NFL players. You see that a lot more in college than you do at the pro level, where there's just that blatant miscommunication and free rushers coming right up the middle when there are only 4 rushing. Wiley has looked poor at his right tackle. He's allowed 22 pressures. That's among the highest in the league. Shout out Evan Neal with 29. Just crazy. But Nick Gates and Wiley have been playing badly, and we don't have studs along the offensive line to begin with, right? So it's cementing the Sam Howell habit of holding onto the ball. Everyone's saying, oh, is it the offensive line's fault? Is it Sam Howell's fault? The answer is probably both, yada, yada. Yes, the answer is both. But when he gets pressure, even when he has time to throw it away, he will tuck the ball every time now because that's what he's used to doing. Mm-hmm. And until the offensive line gets better, he's not going to break that habit. He's not going to look like the guy I said 2 weeks ago on this show. Sam Howell is the guy for the time being, because if you put any other quarterback behind this offensive line, they're not going to see that much more success. He has flashed a lot, and he's had some bad plays as well. So it's just a frustrating team to watch on both sides of the ball. Again, the other name that they brought in this offseason, Cody Barton, he's the main starting linebacker. He's PFF's 5th worst linebacker on qualifying snaps in the entire NFL. So Ron Rivera seems checked out. It's a very frustrating place to be as a fan, but the Commanders fans have to remember to be patient. I know that's been the name of the game for 30 years, but Dan Snyder is out. Harris is in, right? And they're probably just going to clean house this offseason and start from there. So it's still an exciting time for Commanders fans, but Sundays have been a little difficult, and they're going to continue to be difficult for how badly all of the talent is being misused. And I guess props to the Giants for winning, even though it was a sloppy game.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it really well. I think that I did see a stat that said that that Sam Howell is on pace to break, what is it, David Carr's
Yeah.
record of most sacks in a season, and of course that was for the new expansion Texans back in like '01, I think, or something like that. So yeah, not a great type of stat that you want to be, included with. So I would expect Bieniemy, I mean, even though it's his first time as an offensive coordinator, I guess as like a sole play caller would maybe be the way to put it, because of course he was the offensive coordinator in Kansas City, but the plays still were for the most part called by Andy Reid, or at least in kind of collaboration. So I guess the point is that he's got to figure out a way to get Hal some rhythm passes. You got to get him some, whether that be slants, screens, quick outs, drags, but he's got to find ways to give him opportunities, RPOs potentially, give him a chance to make quick decisions and to be very direct and give him an opportunity to get some rhythm throws, because, as much as Sam Howell's talented, he's not experienced enough, and he's not like Patrick Mahomes, right? He can't just run around there and compensate for bad line play and expect something good to happen consistently. So I think Bieniemy needs to adjust to his quarterback. He needs to give him some good rhythm throws, give him some play action, give him some opportunity to just have to go through a couple quick reads and make a decision and let him loose. And I think that if they can make that change, that would make that would really help, I think, compensate for some of the shortcomings on the line.
Yeah, and just to bring up the sack stat, Sam Howell's been sacked 40 times through 7 weeks. That's a 97 sack pace, and Carr's record, right, all-time record is 76. So
well
that
past
is going to shatter the record if this keeps up. And I know we've talked about this extensively, but the scheme Eric Bieniemy brought over, it's a lot of what they do in Kansas City, very similar to style of the offense last year, but they don't have the offensive line or the quarterback to perform it, or just the personnel. And it's a classic case of being trying to fit players into your scheme as opposed to adapting your scheme for the players. So, if Bieniemy can really make adjustments throughout the season and show offensive improvements over the latter half, then I think the front office might consider keeping him. I know there's a lot of buzz about just blindly promoting him to head coach and building from there. I think that's that is not a good way to build an organization from the beginning. I think if he deserves it, then sure. But he's still, the jury's still out. He still has to earn it in my book.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. Sure. Any other game you want to touch on before moving on, Alex?
The Chiefs and Ravens are good. That's it. That's my hot take.
Jeez, that Ravens game. The Lions didn't show up.
They exposed the Lions, man. That was something.
Yeah. Yeah. Lamar Jackson continues to play at a very, very high level. This might be the best season he's ever had in terms of the eyeball test anyway. He's not running as much as he did in his MVP season, but still making plays on his feet. And I think this is the best he's ever looked as a passer.
He's looking excellent, looking MVP level.
Yes.
I guess one other thing I didn't mention, but I mean, I still understand how, but somehow Mac Jones beat the Bills. And that is like, I mean, how does that happen? And I mean, I know he had the help of, Bill Belichick, right? But still, I mean, the Bills, man, they what are they doing? It was like they had that big game against the Dolphins where it was like they kind of asserted their authority. Then they went over to London and looked really lousy and lost to the Jags. Then they got back and they barely beat the Giants. I mean, should have lost to the Giants if the Giants managed the clock properly. And their offense looked terrible. And then their offense just looked out of sync and terrible again. Man, they need to wake up real soon, or they're in trouble, because they got some injuries on defense, so they're going to have to start scoring some more points. I mean, it's pretty simple formula, but they're definitely underperforming, and you can't lose to Mac Jones. That's almost inexcusable right there.
Yeah, props to Mac Jones, 25 of 30 for 272 and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions. That is phenomenal.
It's got to be his best game ever, right?
It has to be. I mean, it's it's hard to beat that game as it is in terms of efficiency. And Josh Allen, you don't know what quarterback you're getting any given week. He can be the best quarterback in the NFL on any given week, and then the next week go out and be the 22nd best quarterback, right? In terms of how he's actually performing. It's just he has always been an inconsistent player. He goes on streaks of being great, and then some cold streaks. So the problem with that is that yes, he's going to bounce back, and they're going to be a great team again. I have full confidence in that. And then which Josh Allen are you going to get come playoff time? Historically, I'm not saying all the playoff losses have been his fault, but if he is playing to the best of his ability, having his top end games, then they should be able as a team to really push through the playoffs, which they haven't been able to do. So 4-3 for the Bills, not necessarily expected. And let's see, do you know who they're playing this upcoming week?
I think they're on a bye this week.
Maybe okay. Not, I don't see the team here right now.
I think they're on a bye.
So, okay. Oh, nope. Buccaneers. Playing the Buccaneers on Thursday.
Oh, that's a Thursday
We didn't
game.
see it on the
that's
Sunday
why
game.
I didn't see it.
That's why. Yep.
Okay.
Same. Okay. So, they're playing in 2 days. And, Buccaneers just got beat by the Falcons without Bijan Robinson. I love how the entire fantasy football community is calling for Arthur Smith's head, even though they're winning games. It's just really funny to me, the disparity between the disconnect between fantasy football and the NFL. Not saying he's been the best coach in the world, but it, still something fun. But the Buccaneers playing the Bills, I think the Bills should win this in the same fashion that they beat the Commanders in week 3. And that was, I believe, 37-3-ish. So, but you never know.
Could be a get right game for the Bills. They need it, after really 3 pretty lousy performances, even though they went 1-2 in that stretch, that they were like I said, a couple mismanaged clock moments away from being 0-3 in that stretch. Really, with 2 of those teams, you got no, the loss to the Jags in London, it's like, you can live with that happens. But I mean, losing to the Giants and the Patriots, that would have been devastating. It's, that would have been unforgivable.
Oh, one more thing before moving on. I don't want to necessarily harp on this. I just want to know if you have seen any of the clips of the missed calls in the Eagles-Dolphins game.
You mean the ones that Mike McDaniel posted on social media?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The blatant.
Did he get fined for that?
I don't know.
He has to be.
Because I saw that on X or Twitter.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I thought that you never know what's the
real
real
account. It could have been a burner
are.
account. Or
because of the blue check mark and how they work now. I assumed it wasn't his real account, but
it's pretty funny. If that would have been him, that would have been pretty funny.
I agree. All right. Before we touch on this upcoming week's games, do you want to get into our upset pick of the week?
Let's do it. You want to kick us off this week, or want me to go first?
I can kick us off this week.
Kick us off.
All right. So my upset, the last few weeks I've been taking closer lines, within 3-point spreads. This week I am deviating a bit, and I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the San Francisco 49ers. It's a 6-point spread. And, the Bengals are coming off of a bye, and the 49ers just played Monday night. 49ers have lost 2 straight games and haven't looked themselves. A lot of people would say good coaches, and they have a great coach. Good coaches will learn from that and sort of get right. Teams like this don't lose 3 games in a row. That makes me nervous for this pick. But with Burrow finally looking good and finally being able to step into his throws, and the fact that the 49ers are still missing Deebo Samuel and have looked like not like a Super Bowl caliber team the last couple of weeks, I think that the Cincinnati Bengals could upset the 6-point spread. How do you feel about that pick, Alex?
Yeah, I saw that one, and I like that. I mean, I'm not convinced that the Bengals are back, though. I mean, we talked about this, I mean, obviously I picked against them in my upset pick for the Seahawks, and I think the Seahawks kind of gave that game away. They had opportunities
Yeah.
to put the Bengals away. And so then that did move the Bengals back to 3-3 after their rough start. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Burrow certainly looked better, and I agree with, given that extra week of rest, I would expect to see them coming out firing. But I also see this as an opportunity for the Niners to get right, after losing 2 weeks in a row, and really 2 weeks that, really shouldn't have lost either of those games, and had opportunities. I mean, missed field goal for the first one, and the second game, a couple of interceptions late, or else they, and a missed field goal, or else they might have had a chance to put the Vikings away as well. And so I think I do think that line probably sounds about right, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals win. But I could also see this as a way for the Niners to come back and say, we're still here. We're a little banged up, but we're here to put our stamp on the NFC and really show that we're gonna, be right on the Eagles' heels.
Yeah, and to me, this is really a toss-up. We're choosing our upset pick, not our favorite bet. And
Yep.
I do not like a lot of these other matchups. I think a lot of them will be pretty one-sided this week. And the close games, I really do think that the team slightly favored is going to win. So this is one where I see a path for the Bengals to win, but I don't necessarily have the conviction that I have in some of these prior weeks.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
agree
really
with you there.
interested to hear your pick because of how much I dislike a lot of these lines. I have a guess because
Okay,
it's the only
give
other
me the
one that I'd
guess.
consider.
What do you got? What do you think?
Is it the Saints over the Colts?
It is not. It is
Okay,
not.
all right.
So, but I
Tell us.
did see that one. So I'm actually going with another one that's a little bit of a bigger line as well. So this is a 6.5 point line.
Ooh.
And so I'm going to take, and I know this is probably going to blow some people's minds, but I'm going to take the Rams beating the Cowboys. Thought process here for me on that one. The Rams have been feisty, and Matt Stafford has looked healthy, and he's been slinging the ball. And I mean, with the rise of Puka Nacua as well as Cooper Kupp getting back in the mix, they can put up some points. And I know that the Cowboys defense, has at times looked elite, and then it's looked shaky other times this season. I mean, I look back at that Cardinals game, and that kind of, it seems like the Cowboys. I don't know if they just think they're better than other teams, but it definitely seems like they struggle with some maybe teams that they might look past or they might think are maybe not on their level. And so I could see the Cowboys, not being entirely prepared for this game. It is a home game for the Cowboys. That certainly helps them. But I don't know. I wonder about that defense. Obviously with some of the injuries in the secondary. If the Rams are throwing the ball over the yard and they turn this thing into a track meet, I mean, I think they got more firepower than the Cowboys do. Dak Prescott has yet to show us this year that he can really step it up in an offensive game and put up enough points, when it's a close, tight game. I'm not saying curb stomping somebody. I'm saying if it's a tight game, it is a key 3rd and long late in the game. I mean, I need to see him put the team on his back. So I think it's a little bit of a risky pick for sure, but I'm going to take the Rams over the Cowboys. What do you like? Do you like it? Do you hate it?
Now, would you change your mind if I told you that Puka Nacua leads the league in drops right now? Does that change your mind?
Doesn't he also lead though, like in other categories as well?
Pretty much every other category.
Tyreek, I think, is number one, right, in most things, but Nakua's up there. So
yeah.
he's getting it worked out. It's his breakout year.
Yeah, he is just the best. I mean, he's the best rookie in the league right now. It's unbelievable. So I don't hate that pick. I'm always down to root against the Cowboys. I do think the Cowboys are just a more talented overall roster. But to be fair, I also think that the 49ers are a more talented roster than the Bengals, and that was my pick. So, any given Sunday, right?
That's right. I would say I give the coaching edge to the Rams. Yes. I don't know. McCarthy, like the longer that he's there, the less impressed I am with his coaching abilities, but neither here nor there.
I agree. And, the Cowboys, I don't think I'm just saying this because I'm a Commanders fan. Part of their persona is being cocky. I mean, their personnel, a lot of the players, Micah Parsons, I know Diggs, also they're currently on the team. They know, quote know they're better than other people and they're not afraid to tell them how it is. Micah Parsons really is better than pretty much everyone else and tells it how it is. But I think that's just a part of the appeal to so many people in the U.S. They're, America's team. There's less so nowadays with the publicity, but still, I think that what you're saying about maybe, for instance, the loss to the Cardinals, maybe they were preparing 2 weeks out for the team they played in week 4. I don't know. I don't have much insight. That would surprise me because NFL coaches know to prepare each and every week. But, with an upset like that, you never know what's going to happen against, the Rams. So I don't hate it.
I got something to say on Micah Parsons real quick. So Micah Parsons, if you're listening, I have something to share with you. Okay.
Share with
you are very, very good. You're one of the best, if not the best linebacker in the league. But in your podcast, you shouldn't talk about teams like Cam and I do. It's just not a good idea. Like, teams don't need more bulletin board. I saw yesterday he on his podcast, and I heard this somehow, it kind of filtered to me, but that he was naming his top 5 teams and basically gushing over the 49ers and how good they are, as well as the Eagles. And then he said the Chiefs are not a top 5 team, and then went on to go and talk about why they're not. Like, what are you doing, dude?
Well, what did he say?
Well, I mean, he said this. He said it's just Mahomes and Kelsey. He said Mahomes and Kelsey, and that's it. And everybody else is like basically below average. I mean, that's basically what he said. And it's like, dude, like Cam and I, we can make these types of. We don't have any skin in the game. Like, I'm not out there, trying to juke out a, Trent Williams or something, right? And I mean, what are you doing, man? Like, I know you're really good, but it's like teams don't need any more bulletin board material. And like, if you're out there talking about teams, I don't know. I don't like it. I understand that players have podcasts. Travis Kelce has a podcast, but Travis Kelce doesn't go on his podcast and basically say some teams suck and some teams don't. Like he said, he basically every week, him and Jason Kelce talk about how great the team is that they played. Like they're smart, they're savvy, they're veterans. They know how to play the media game. And it's just not smart. Like I can't. Cam, I'll get off my soapbox. But can you imagine? Can you imagine somebody on the Patriots when they were in their dynasty run? Can you imagine? Randy Moss going on a podcast and being like, "Oh yeah, the Colts, they suck. They just have Andrew Luck. The rest of their team's like a joke. I mean, can you imagine Belichick allowing somebody to say that? That's very, very, very poor reflection on McCarthy, Jones, and that whole operation. What are you guys? Are you a professional football team or are you a media company? My goodness. All right.
Not sure if Randy Moss was the best example for that one, but
yeah, but even he didn't do that, right? That's the point, right? Like, he's on TV now, but like Bill Belichick wasn't going to let him do that during their run.
Yeah. All right. So should we get into some of these other matchups this upcoming week? All right. So we already touched on the Thursday night game, the Bills, the Buccaneers, and hopefully the Bills can, hopefully in terms of, I guess from the Bills' perspective, they can stomp this game and have a get-right game. One of the closest spreads of the week is the Jets-Giants game. I believe that's 2.5 point spread, and I could see this being an ugly game. But I think the Giants. I think the Jets are going to just run away with it based on talent. What do you think on that? Because I think that the Jets can run on the Giants and just lock down all of their mediocre receiving options.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that's going to be an ugly game. And I was going to ask, Daniel Jones is still out, right? It's still Tyrod this week. Is that right?
I think so.
Okay.
Let's figure this out. So
yeah. So I mean, I think it's still Tyrod again, and I mean, surprisingly, Tyrod has actually moved the ball a little bit better than Daniel Jones at times, which is certainly not what you would want to see from your $40 million quarterback. But I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I mean, I think at pretty much every position, I would give the edge to the Jets. So even though it has a close line, certainly it's going to be a physical football game. But I think that the Jets will, especially the Jets coming off a bye too, should be better rested. I think the Jets will take care of it.
Yeah, and to answer the question, Daniel Jones is still undergoing rehab. He is not cleared yet, but his official designation is questionable.
I don't know if my mind would change even if he was playing.
Yeah, mine would not. I like Tyrod. I think that'll be a pretty one-sided game. Now, moving on to another one-sided game, the Eagles play against the Commanders. And I know I've shared too many of my thoughts on the Commanders so far on this podcast, but once again, it's Eagles' superb defensive line against the Commanders' unsuperb offensive line, and Sam Howell's going to get sacked 8 more times. If I were to put the over/under at 5.5 sacks, where would you take?
The over.
Yeah, me too. Genuinely, which is crazy. That shouldn't be happening. But those should be some one-sided games. Alex, are you looking forward to any particular game this week?
Well, I got to give my dumpster fire game of the week. So there was a couple candidates this week, but this week, and it kind of pains me to put this on here because this is a team that has been actually surprisingly fun to watch, and all of that because of their rookie quarterback. But I'm still not going to watch them. So this week, my dumpster fire game of the week is the Houston Texans and the Carolina Panthers. I just, I know Bryce Young against CJ Stroud. I mean, that kind of that might draw me a little bit, but still the rest of, other than those two guys, there's not really anybody else that I want to see on either of these teams. Even though, like I said, DeMeco Ryans, man, he's turning that program around. They're more than happy to say goodbye to Deshaun and embrace this new generation. So, but that's still with all the other games going on, I will not be watching that game. So that is my dumpster fire game of the week. But everybody stay put. Don't change that channel because I got another game for you. I got a game for you that's going to be the coach that doesn't get a plane ride home game. And for that one, it's none other than the Chicago Bears and the Los Angeles Chargers. So in this case, although I would actually say Eberflus is probably safer than Brandon Staley, but as you all know, as faithful followers of the show, how does Brandon Staley still have a job? I just don't understand. I mean, I'm a Chiefs fan, but once again, this last week, I mean, the amount of separation between any defensive back and Travis Kelce is inexcusable. Brandon Staley is a defensive coach. He's supposed to understand how defenses work. And I mean, Travis Kelce would run a little whatever made up route as he would go along. And then he would do that and then just turn around. And it's insane how wide open he was. Sometimes he was 6 yards from the closest defensive back. And according to Michael Parsons, there's no one else in the Chiefs that knows how to catch the ball other than Travis Kelce. So it's just, I don't understand how the guy has a job still. So anyway, I wouldn't even be shocked if the Bears beat Brandon Staley with a Division II undrafted quarterback. And if that happens, ladies and gentlemen, Brandon Staley will not get a plane ride home.
Yeah, it's wild. I need to watch more Chiefs tape, but I don't understand how coaches don't go into those games, say, we're going to play our nickel press man on Kelce and then bracket him with another cornerback, a linebacker, a strong safety, have one on the line and one just at the break, and say we'll figure everything else out from there. We just can't let the Chiefs win through him because the Chiefs are a better team than we are. I don't know if coaches say that. I don't know if they're realistic, but the Chiefs are a better team. And it seems like every week it's, we have our game plan. We'll play our style of football, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, teams need to just eliminate Kelce from the game. And I know there is an argument saying that he just always gets open. He always finds separation. If there are two high-level athletes at the position manning him throughout the duration of his entire route, he won't get targeted as much. Now, Mahomes might eat you up elsewhere, and then you can figure it out at a half. But it just astounds me that Kelce can get 580 yards a week, and teams don't seem to do much about it. Now, I thought that your team that doesn't get a plane ride home would be, again, the team that's playing in Detroit, which is the Las Vegas Raiders. But it just seems too obvious at this point. They have the cash to buy another head coach, he is out by the end of the season. I think he is pretty undoubtedly the worst coach.
It's laughable. It's laughable, Cam. He's another guy. I mean, the AFC West coaching jobs, other than Andy Reid, is like, wow, not so hot this year. But that's another guy. I mean, how does Josh McDaniels, how does he still stay employed? We got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, he lost to Jeff Saturday last year. That's right. Jeff Saturday, the center, who then became an interim coach who had never coached football at any level. And that's a whole nother story. We'll take you back in time there sometime, maybe. But Jeff Saturday, never coached before, and he beat Josh McDaniels in a game that Josh McDaniels was prepping for. Well, I mean, that was just last year. I mean, it's an embarrassment.
Well, I don't recall. I think we've talked about this on the podcast, but the Raiders were absolutely cash poor after their move to Vegas and building a new stadium, and there were lots of rumors saying they actually didn't have the money to pay him if they were to get rid of him this last offseason. Not sure if that's true. Very strong rumor from a lot of reliable people in the industry, sort of saying exactly the same thing. There's this rumor that
Well, I mean, I believe that, Cam, because remember Al Davis, he was never a wealthy owner, right? And he gave it to his son, and all their money has come for the Davis family, as far as I know, has come from the football team. So they've never been, had a lot of wealthy outside money, especially compared to the Josh Harris group, right? And some of these other owners that have a lot of money on the outside. So with that in mind, I mean, that wouldn't shock me at all. The Raiders are much more of a mom and pop type of operation than some of these other larger enterprises.
That's an interesting analogy, but yes, I guess that is true. Now, I did think that there was the potential your dumpster fire game, just based on how you view these two teams, was going to be the Jaguars Steelers. I know they're both theoretically good teams, but just based on how we've talked about them over the last few weeks of the season, I thought it's possible you'd make that your game. But I think the Jaguars handily beat the Steelers this time around. The line for the game is only 2.5. But I think it could be a lot closer than people expect. I did not make the Steelers my upset pick for a reason, though.
Yeah, they burned me earlier this year as well. I think that the Steelers, I think that what I understand about the Steelers is they really do a good job of leaning into the areas that they're good, right? Like they control the line of scrimmage. They have an excellent defensive line, really excellent linebacker play. And so I think that they really kind of lean into that. And, they had, Mike Tomlin understands his team's weaknesses and I think does a good job of trying to compensate for that. But they're limited. I think they're certainly going to be limited in what they can do offensively. They have struggled to run the ball consistently. And in a lot of ways, I think they're pretty conservative play calling with when it comes to Pickett, which I know has drawn, Matt Canada has certainly drawn the ire of a lot of Steelers fans for that. And although they looked a little bit better this last week, we'll see kind of how that translates. I still think they're limited in what they can do offensively. So I agree. I think the Jags will take that game. I think it'll be close, but I think the Jags will pull it out.
Yeah, and Steelers are on a 2-game win streak. Fun fact: every team in the AFC North is on a 2-game win streak right now. But the Steelers have won 2, Jaguars have won their last 4. These teams' combined records are 9-4, so they are both good teams. And it doesn't seem like injuries have really hit the Steelers as badly as they have a lot of other teams.
The Ravens, yeah. The Bengals earlier in the year, yep.
Well, if you remember the Ravens last year, there was some issue like with their turf and their practice field, and people kept getting hurt. Not because of that. I know that was sort of an internet thing, but the Steelers have pretty much their full starting roster aside from Pat Freiermuth, and I thought Cam Hayward is coming back this week. Is that right? I know
I'm not sure. He was on IR, so I think don't they have like a 3-week period to activate him? I think is how that works. So yeah, if he's not this week, he'll probably be within a couple of weeks.
All right. Well, either way, it should still be an exciting game. Now, next game up on the dock would be the Vikings and Packers. The Vikings did just win over the 49ers. I'm still not convinced that they're a good team. They certainly have their players and their moments, but I'm also not convinced that the Packers are a very good team either. The Jordan Love started the season on fire, and it was an unsustainable pace, which has been proven because that has come down immensely, and people went on, people changed their minds so quickly throughout the football season. It was, oh look, Jordan Love is the next Aaron Rodgers, and he's the next Brett Favre. He's him. And then a couple bad games, and it's like, well, we should probably draft someone because he can't play the position. So I will be watching this game. I've not watched the Packers too closely over the last 2 to 3 weeks, so I'm looking forward to buckling down and watching these two teams that I haven't watched as closely recently.
Yeah, and I agree with Jordan Love. I mean, looking at his stats, right? He's at 57% for completion percentage. That's certainly not where it should be, but not horrible. 10 touchdowns to 7 picks, not great. He's about 1,200 yards. I mean, he hasn't been the worst, but I mean that some of that I think is a little bit inflated though, because I don't think he's passed the eye test. I mean, like we talked about, he looks slow in his decision making. He's fairly athletic. But he doesn't look, he looks like it's still maybe a little bit too fast for him, and he's still sped up. And so I think some experience is going to help with that, but yeah, he's going to really need to turn things around because I mean, they didn't sign his 5th-year option, but they did sign him to, I think, a 2-year deal at a very moderate amount of money. And so the Packers are by no means committed to him longer than this year. So this is kind of his chance, it's his chance to really show that he can be a starter in this league. And he's shown some flashes, but the second half of the season, he's going to have to put together some consistent games or he's going to be labeled as a backup. And once that happens, there's still value in that, but there's not a lot of teams that are looking for young guys, that don't have a lot of experience to be backups. Most teams are much more likely to hire a veteran that maybe has been a backup for a number of years or at a time was a starter. So, yeah, he's going to have to perform. It really is the make or break year for him, no doubt.
Yeah, and just looking at some of his stats, right? He has 7 turnover-worthy plays on the season, which is not awful, not great. He is lacking in the big-time throw category with 7 on the season. He's thrown, the thing is, he's thrown 7 interceptions on 7 turnover-worthy plays, which, again, we talked about luck earlier, and that could be considered a bit unlucky, but that's not really to say that he's been playing better than his stats indicate. He's been pretty slightly below average in most categories, and with his 57% completion percentage, he definitely has to show some improvement throughout the course of the season. Now, his receivers aren't necessarily helping him. I saw that Christian Watson has one of the lowest percentages of contested catch rates in the entire league. When the stats was in zone coverage, he's 0 of 5 for contested catches. Kind of a niche stat, but it's still, he has talent around him, and hopefully he can improve a bit. I do think they stick with him next year and probably for a couple of years, unless he really shows absolutely no improvement at all throughout the duration of the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there.
All right, what games have we not touched on? I see the Patriots Dolphins. Dolphins are gonna light them up like they did week 2. Any disagreements there?
Every once in a while, Belichick, like I said, man, this last week we kind of thought he was dead. We were kind of like, he's like the dead horse. You're kind of kicking it, right? And then all of a sudden it wakes up. That's kind of what Belichick looked like this last week. So I don't know. I mean, I think that everything would tell me, and my gut would tell me that the Dolphins are going to want to come out and honestly try to run the score up again, against the Patriots and show that they're still, wanting and trending towards being an elite team. But every once in a while, Bill Belichick, man, he pulls out one of those unexpected games defensively, and I don't really think the Dolphins are that good defensively. So if somehow the Patriots D, can really find a way to obviously contain Tyreek Hill and try to make someone else beat him, I could see it being closer than expected. And it is a divisional game as well. So you never know. So I would say gut tells me that the Dolphins are going to run away with it. But Can't count out that sly old Hood.
Yeah, and the Dolphins have not had the most luck, the best luck with injuries. They're missing Teron Armstead and Isaiah Wynn, right? The entire left side of their offensive line, and the Patriots can exploit those weaknesses. They're playing, Kendall Lamb and Liam Eichenberg in those left tackle and left guard positions. Eichenberg, I know, has struggled a lot since coming into the league. He was, I believe, in college he was more of this. He was a tackle, but he had shorter arms, and they thought kicking him inside to go to make him sort of this reliable player. But he really hasn't shown the ability to be a capable starter throughout most of his games. So, yeah, anything's possible. And again, Devon Achane is on IR. And just to have a very quick conversation about him, I was listening to a discussion on who the best rookie running backs in the league were right now, and the first argument was Achane, because he's just been, every time he gets the ball, it's absurd. He's 12-ish yards per carry, and he looks amazing. But in terms of determining who the best running back in the league is, or best rookie running back, would you consider the fact that he is smaller, has an injury history, and likely won't be on the field throughout the course of a season into your evaluation, and sort of say, okay, well, the more durable running back, bad example, Bijan Robinson, because he just sat out for whatever reason this last week, said he was getting headaches and couldn't sleep the night before. So that aside, who would you think is the best rookie running back this season?
Yeah, I was probably going to say Bijan, because of, I would say, the workload, right? Because yeah, you're right. He did miss a week, but he's pretty quickly taken over that Falcons offense, which actually has surprisingly some other decent skill position players. Although, like we've talked about, they often don't use them. But Bijan has come in and I think clearly kind of quickly became, the key cog in that Falcon offense. And so, yeah, I think that Achane, such a big advantage he has is that he's not the every down back, and Mike McDaniel, really obviously coming out of that Shanahan system, knows how to really exploit the defense and some of those zone runs and opportunities for like a speed back like Achane. And so I think that, I think that he's in a wonderful position, but for me, if I'm going to vote on specifically the best offensive rookie running back, I want to look at a guy that's going to be more of an every down back and maybe more integral to the team's offense, because I think that you take Achane out of that offense, and Mostert is certainly still a speed running back as well. They can still do the things that they want to do without Achane. You take Bijan out of that Falcon offense, and they're going to be, I think, be a little bit more.
And they beat the Buccaneers.
Well, yeah, they did. But, it's a long season, right? So we'll see.
Yeah. And, Mostert against the Patriots, the last time they played, rushed for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, it's not the best matchup for running backs per se, but he could definitely have another electric game.
Yep.
All right. What other games have we not touched on? I think we've hit all of them except for the Ravens-Cardinals.
Yeah, I was going to say, and we also didn't really hit the Chiefs-Broncos, but I was just going to say both of those are like the biggest lines. The Chiefs are 8-point favorites. Ravens are 8.5-point favorites. So, I think both of I would say right now the Chiefs and Ravens are probably, playing the best football in the AFC, those two teams, at least the last few weeks. I know the Ravens did lose to the Steelers, but that was a little bit fluky a few weeks ago, in my opinion. So I think that right now the Ravens and Chiefs are probably the best two teams in the AFC. So I think we'll continue to see that trend. I don't see either of these teams having an issue with the Broncos or the Cardinals, respectively.
I agree completely. All right. Now, before we hit the road, Alex, I have a question for you, or I'm going to make an argument, and I want to hear your thoughts. All right. So I'm going to list some of the best wide receivers in the NFL via PFF against various coverages. All right. So against man coverage, the top 5 receivers are Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, Nico Collins, Hollywood Brown, and Brandon Ayuk. Against zone, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Rashee Rice, Puka Nacua, and AJ Brown. There are 3 overlapping names on that list: Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, and Brandon Ayuk. Is there an argument to be made that those are the 3 best receivers in the NFL right now?
Well,
Aside from Justin Jefferson.
Well, I was about to say, I mean, the two guys that come to
Justin
mind,
Jefferson.
yeah, I was going to say the 2 guys that come to mind, I mean, Jefferson's hurt. So, like, but before Jefferson was hurt, he was certainly putting up numbers there until that Chiefs game when he got hurt. And then honestly, like a guy that is like, it's kind of his own fault, but like, I still think Devontae Adams is absolutely elite. I mean, there really doesn't seem like there's much that he doesn't do well, but man, like the Raiders are just such a mess. He can't throw the ball to himself, and it's one of those things where if he could probably have a pass, maybe he would have stayed with Aaron Rodgers, because that's just. I mean, I know that he came to be with his buddy Derek Carr, but obviously Carr left, and Carr's not even that great anyway. So I think it makes sense. I mean, I think Ayuk is definitely overlooked because there's so many other talented guys, on that 49ers team, on that 49ers roster. I mean, heck, most of the time I think of Deebo Samuel first before I even think of Ayuk.
Yeah.
And so, but I know he's a guy that they want to keep, but I think he's a free agent. So he's in a contract year after this year, to my knowledge. So I think he's going to fetch a pretty penny. So I do think he's going to get an elite contract. Whether or not he's elite, I think the money will talk. And I do think he'll definitely be sought after this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I heard Mike Renner say earlier this week, one of my favorite draft analysts, that Ayuk is the 3rd best wide receiver in the NFL, behind only Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill. Not sure I'd go that high with him, because I think AJ Brown is probably better as well. And
I mean, Jamar Chase is up there,
Adams, but
for sure.
Putting
Yep.
Ayuk in that tier, it might not sound so crazy by the end of the year.
I think he's top 10 for sure. Because even after those guys, I mean, a healthy Cooper Kupp is another guy, that certainly could be up there. There's a few other guys for sure. There's, but I definitely think Ayuk is top 10.
Yeah, and I think Ayuk is the highest in EPA per play as well this season. I haven't looked that up in a week or two, but he was last time I checked. It was him and Hill. So great receiver. Great receiver. All right, Alex. Anything else you want to touch on before we hit the road?
No, I mean, I will be watching that trade deadline, coming up. I think that's about 6 days away. So that'll be fun to keep a close eye on that. And by the time we're talking next week, who knows, there might be some star players on the move, and that'll be fun to break those down and talk about that. So, but it's been a lot of fun to get back and kind of do a recap and a look forward. So we got another great week of football coming. So no, it's been a lot of fun. What about you, Cam? Any closing thoughts?
Well, Kevin Byard was already traded to the Eagles, right? For
he was
5th and a 6th. So Eagles, making more good moves as they have.
I like
done
that move. Yeah,
recent years. That. Excellent move. Very good safety. So I think the Titans are going to be selling a bit more.
Derrick Henry could be on the move. He's another guy that's been rumored for a few months now. So, hey, I don't know what his contract situation looks like, but if he wants to come to the Chiefs and stiff arm some people, that sounds fun. Him and Pacheco would be a nice 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Derrick Henry to the Ravens. I've seen
that would make sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
He also seems like a stealer, doesn't he? I mean, Harris has always been, doesn't been producing. So, I mean, he just seems like so he's such a physical player.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that one, but this is the last year of his contract. 2024 starts his void years. So I do not see. I mean, I think it would just be beneficial for them to move him. And honestly, he could go to the Chiefs too, right? Go to any of those top teams just who might need that extra piece to go all in.
I mean, there's no way he's going to go for very much, because with teams knowing that he's going to be a free agent, they're not going to dish out a really high pick for that. There's just no way for a half season rental of an older running back that, is just clearly has a lot of miles on him, So, I mean, but I mean, would I be happy if the Chiefs gave him a 6th-round pick or something for him? Heck yeah, sure. That's fine. Those guys, even though some of the Chiefs' late-round picks have actually turned out to be really good, but still, in value, while the Chiefs are making a run, I'd be fine with that. So we'll see.
We will see. All right, and we'll talk about that next week too. And before we leave, I just wanted to say that I am moving this upcoming weekend. So I know my background looks great as it is with printers and awards that aren't mine because I'm in someone else's room right now. But I am going to be setting up a little studio. So I'm really looking forward to moving, and it will be a lot nicer come next week. So next time we talk here, Alex, we'll both have improved backgrounds.
I can't wait to see the John Riggins poster or something in the background.
Well, I won't get a tattoo, that's for sure. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, to the F6 podcast. It is great to have Alex back with us, and we'll be joining you again next week. If you enjoyed the episode, please do not forget to like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And as always, have a great day, and we will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.